Hello,
Howdy.
how's it going?
Another day, another dollar.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know if Sean is was on vacation last week?
I don't know. He's in another building, but
Okay.
did something not get uploaded or?
Yeah, no, I think I was assuming he was on vacation. I'll resend him the note. Da, 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 da. There it is. Send. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Oh, 4 participants. Eugenia's joining us today.
For some reason, it looks like I don't know why. It must be the way this is set up, but we're already starting. So just to let you know, we're recording. We don't have to start the meeting, but we're recording.
Okay, you could pause it, can't you? Yeah.
All right, I resumed. Okay, we're good. All right, so my name is Bruce Lofgren. I'm here with the Town of Groton Office of Planning and Development Services. This is the Conservation Commission meeting on October 5th, 2020. Chairman is Larry Dunn, and he will be running the meeting. During the public communications portion of the meeting, anyone who would wish to speak from the attendees can do so if they raise their hand virtually. That's usually located on the bottom of the screen. And the chairman will call on you to comment. It's also applicable to other agenda items as well. With that, Larry, you can take the roll and start the meeting.
All right, you could let Eugenia in. She's out there in the waiting area.
Yeah.
So Larry Dunn, chairman. Tom?
Tom Olson, board member.
Ray?
Ray, vice chair.
Kristen?
DeSante, member.
All right, and that's it. We just made a quorum. First topic is the draft minutes of 9/14.
I move that we accept the minutes as proposed.
Second.
All right, comments in regards to the minutes. All right, seeing as there's no comments, I'm sitting here looking at it. I didn't see anything either. All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes, raise their hand.
Aye.
I see four. None against, none abstaining. All right, the next topic is public communications. So we have the public.
Hello,
Eugenia.
everybody.
Hi,
Hey, public.
Eugenia.
Nice to see you. So I'll get right to the point. Wanted to talk with you about a project that GCA is engaged with because we want to know if any of you might be interested in joining with us on this. As a result of the work that I was doing with the Noang Gardens and listening to all of the town councilors talk about especially Leanne Overy, talking about inequities between the east side and the west side, and Portia on that subject, just about everybody on that subject. We started thinking about what could we do to try and promote more equity when it comes to open space on the west side. That was one of the reasons when the Merritt Properties swap took place a couple of years ago, that King property was selected over by the Kolnaski School. And, but nothing has really been done to make that property more accessible to the folks over there, or we don't even know if they even know that it exists as open space. And so I gave a call to John Burt, and John Burt thought it would be a wonderful idea if we would try to do something like that, that he would like to be involved. He said that the town could certainly put up signs, and wanted to know if we could be try to put together a group of people to try to make this happen. And so I've been in touch with Patrice, who's interested. I've especially been in touch more recently with Conrad Heed, because Conrad lives over in the neighborhood right next door on the west side of Birch Plain Creek, which is the portion of the property that has not and doesn't have any trails developed there at all. And that's where we'd really like to see some a trail built. Conrad has come up with a great list of names of people on the west side, because we really want this. We're just trying to enable this project. We'd really like to see the people on the west side of town actually do this. And so we're going to be calling a meeting in a couple of weeks. We have a number of names on a list here, of people who are really excited, and people who are movers and shakers on the west side of town. We want to make sure that there's going to be diversity on this committee that we're setting up. And we seem to be, moving along in that direction. Sue Sutherland has agreed to design a trail for that side of the property that doesn't have a trail. So things are falling into place. And because having read several times your open space plan, and especially the most recent draft, you had some great information there about social justice and the environment. Who was responsible for doing most of that research on the social justice aspect? Tom, you were. Yeah, we thought whoever was responsible for that might want to sit in on these meetings, but that's just an idea. We know that you're very busy. We appreciate all of the hard work that you've been doing and that you continue to do. So that's all I wanted to say. Please contact us if you're at all interested in participating in this effort. Thank you. And I see Liz is.
Yep, she's there. You're on mute.
Liz, you have to unmute. Oh, now she's muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something wrong with her computer then, because it shows. Whoop. All right. All right, so we can open it for discussion. I think you did point out that it is part of the conservation plan. One of the thoughts that come to mind is we are doing a series of segments on the conservation plan and open space, and it occurred to me that maybe one segment could be on community action in this particular property to show the start of it, whether it's the creation of the trails, and that would provide some publicity. We've already got agreement with the Parks and Rec to get onto their Facebook page with these segments, et cetera. So, I mean, that's one thought that we could do. Let me throw it open for discussion. Anyone would like to comment?
This is Tom Olson. Two items. One is you asked about my personal involvement. I don't know how much I'll personally get involved right now. I've kind of gotten sucked into the Tri-Town Trail up in Preston, but I'll see what I can do. But one of the things from my discussions when I met with the Groton City Conservation Commission is that they have not been involved in anything, and they freely admit that. And so I would just encourage, if GCA is going to starting inviting people, is to include them in your invite list also.
We already have somebody,
Okay.
one RTM person from that side, and also one person who's actually involved in the city of Groton government.
Okay, well, it's just that they have a full up Conservation Commission just like we are here, just to let you know that they've got regular
Oh.
members, formal meetings and that whole thing. Just so,
Okay.
as far as to, you might want to be making a plea over to them directly. Because they admit, because they are a joint Inland Wetlands Conservation Commission, and they freely admit that 99% of their stuff is inland wetlands. So this would give them an opportunity to branch out a little bit. So I just encourage that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just want to say that, it's Kristen, I just think it's a great idea. And I think it's, I think you'll find a lot of enthusiasm maybe on that side of town and support your efforts. It's a good thing to do.
Thank you.
Ray, any comments?
No, I think it's a great idea, and the more that the community is involved in helping improve the town, the trail systems, all the better, because it makes more people aware of not only the project that they're working on, but they may look at other trails in the town, take advantage of them. It's all good.
Yeah, we're hoping that this could be the sort of the first experience only, that this would be the first one, and then move from the King property once we get that up and running to another one, potentially Boulder Heights. I don't know. That's there's so many boulders there. I'm sure how feasible it is to really put in any trails there, but there are some trails there. It's just getting access to them.
Getting access there. Well, let
Yeah.
me, I mean, you've seen the support from all of us. What I think is I like the idea of maybe a property gets adopted, which is kind of what you're saying about the local, folks that are more local to it. And let me reach out to a bit to see if we can do a video on this. So Kristen, I'll reach out to Becky to see if this might be a second thing to do that talks about maybe two segments. One is the people that, why do they want to do it? And then another one after they're finished with it, maybe, here was the result that would get out there in the community. And then part of the getting more, what's the next property, get people more involved. So I think that getting, the advertisement is probably the wrong word, but getting community awareness, involvement and awareness is kind of what I like to pursue. Also, I would ask Eugenia, if there's, I mean, I don't know, Tom, maybe we could add some text to our section. If there's something that, could be added as a specific example, Eugenia, I would certainly support getting into the conservation plan as, part of a living document, but I'll kind of leave that one with you to see if that makes sense, a paragraph or two that could be added to that section.
Right. I mean, this is the first thing we have to do is just get this group of people together, which we're hoping to do in a week or two, because Conrad has contacted a number of people on the west side of town. In fact, we're having to just sort of say, okay, enough. We're going to have too many people. It's going to get unwieldy with too many people. So, and then there's a planning phase of it, and then there's the execution, which is going to require a number of volunteers. And we want to try to get, scouts involved in it. We maybe potentially the Navy. GOSA's really good with contacting, Navy volunteers. I don't know about Coast Guard, but I think that there's a lot of interest right now in engaging in especially this kind of project that is trying to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. So.
All right, Tom?
Yeah, from your laundry list of organizations you just rattled off there, I didn't hear Pfizer, and AGOSA regularly uses Pfizer. There's a whole program that's
Oh,
involved.
Pfizer. Yeah, okay.
And they actually, if you get more than 5 people involved, you actually can get some cash to also help out on defraying costs that may come along. Like about almost between $2,500 and $5,000 available if you can get like a group of 5 Pfizer folks that would be supportive, and it's in their community, so it should be very easy to find. And the point of contact with is Wendy Spader with GOSA.
Oh, yeah, I remember her name. Yeah. Oh, this is great, Tom. That's fantastic. Okay, good.
Okay. So we do have, we still can't hear you, Liz. I'm sorry. You did go out and come back in again, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, twice. All right, you need some tech support. So, unfortunately, all right. Let's see. So that then we'll move on to our items of business. And the first one is a conservation plan update. We did get and was provided in the agenda. I'm sorry, in the handout was a lot of the comments. So I suppose I should ask, have you all had a chance to kind of go through those comments? I know Tom has. I have. Kristen's nodded. Ray, have you had a chance? Okay. And there's a couple of ways to approach this. When I looked through it, there was maybe 3 categories of topics, generally. One was what I would call factual, which says, oh, gee, this particular property should have been labeled this versus that or whatever. So that's one set. Another set I would label political. Gee, you don't have the authority to do this or to do that. I mean, we'll get to that in a second. And then the third one were, well, the other category, which led to more general comments about, the document's too big, or you shouldn't talk about taxes in a conservation plan document or things of that nature. So one of the things that Tom took a whack at was to kind of go through the document and identify are the comments to be done by, let's say, maybe the data team to address, the text team to address, or as a group we would address it. I took it upon myself. I did a 4th category, which was the things addressing the economic model itself, right? And I've already kind of made my comments in response to that and send it to the text team through Tom to be addressed as part of the text committee. So if that approach looks or sounds good, what I would suggest is we chat a little bit on the let's call it the authority side or the political side, and then see if we can maybe talk about the top items on the all category that Tom has identified. So let me throw that out there. Is that an appropriate way to proceed? Agreement or comments? Dun, 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 dun. Tom.
Okay, it's Tom Olson. As far as for all your factual items, I've tried to already jump on those, and I found those were only in two of the sets of the 4 comments or 5 comments that we packages that we received, just from the one from Sue Sutherland and also from the planning staff. So I've already working with Kristen have pulled out what I feel are all the factual items for the text team to work on, and I've basically already got a draft of those corrections already made that I'd be available. I can post it here if I want to go through it all, but I think but there's still like a large number of items for all of us to discuss that I think we just need to kind of plow through the alls as a group here. And if you've got your alls sorted some way, I don't. I just have them sorted whether it's all text or data, and as far as for all the comments. But if you want to go through, as I would be recommending that today, the most effective thing is if we can sort through some of the all things, if there are changes that we need to do to the plan, that I can then start working, that the text team can start working on those. Because I do have time over the next 2 weeks here to sort through all those.
All right. I guess that's where I was going to get to. Hey, Bray, with Michelle being sort of out of pocket, if you would be willing to take a look at the data topics in the document. Tom, did that get sent out, or am I the only one that?
And
All right.
the only place that I sent is just the discussion between the two of us. And then I did take the 2 sets of comments and the updated text. I sent that to the team, the text team, as far as for where we are as of tonight, as far as so they can take a look at that in advance.
All right. If you could send a copy that has the identified data line items to Bray, then he could begin to look at that, and maybe, as a subgroup, Bray, you and I, and Michelle.
Yeah, there's only 2 items for the data team.
Yeah, there wasn't. That's right. There wasn't a lot. That's why I was just suggesting it, Bray. It'd be easiest to go through it to do that. All right. So that's one item. I think the way to do this, then, Tom, you've got the document with the tags on it. Do you want to share the screen and bring that up?
This is which document? The ones with
the ones with the all text data.
Okay. This would be the comments like from the planning office. And let me bring that, close this and bring this up. Okay. And let me do a share screen here. And share. Okay, this is the memorandum from principally, I think, Bruce and Deb. I don't know who else was involved in it, but I could tell some of the comments were Deb's, just from the tone. But what I did is I basically, they gave us a set of general comments, and then I assigned them to the text or to the alls. So from just going down here is that we have basically, on the general comments, I just said agree or disagree. I didn't make any changes. That we agree that there's going to be some reference terminologies, that there's issues of mappings. I agree with all that. There are sections to be improved for additional referencing. I found those errors. I agree with all those. And then we have a comment in here for everybody in regard to some areas the plan can be approved and enhanced if the subdivision regulations, inland wet regs, POCD, other agencies are referenced. We have identified areas that these regulations could be enhanced points and more accurately identify methods of achievement. I haven't gotten to specifics on here, but from my viewpoint, I would agree with these. And from what after spending a lot of time with looking through the text items in the specific comments, I think I've corrected some of issues with the zoning commission and the inland wetlands commissions. And I think that's really what she was referencing. So to some degree, I'd say we should agree with this, that we'll correct any of these identifications. The reason I just left it for everybody is just to let you know that this is kind of a more broad scope than just a specific target in regard to responsibilities.
All right. All right. So I agree as well. I took a whack at the action items in section 7. I think I forwarded that to you, Tom, where I kind of updated it to that point of planning and zoning, where we kind of flipped it. They're responsible with whatever we have. So, I did provide my input to that. I would suggest that perhaps we leave it, well, a little chutzpah here is I'll take my recommendations and put it in there and then get it back out to the team to see if there's agreement on it, and we can review that. I'm trying to think of the sequence here at our next meeting, because I'd like to close this out and have a draft 3 or a final draft approval notice at our next meeting if possible. All right. So that'd be my suggestion there. In essence, guys, really it takes the Conservation Commission in probably 60-70% of the time where it was us with the planning department. We said it's the planning department supported by us. I mean, I kind of flipped a lot of those responsibilities where it seemed that, you know, they were to clear it up. I mean, and to clarify who really had the point on it, and where we push rather than are responsible. So if that's okay, I'll leave it for a quick, you know, a head nod or agreement that particular one, we can leave it that way. Tom, comments?
Yeah, I agree with you. I did receive your changes. I haven't had a chance to go through them, but I will incorporate them into the next revision. I think that's all we need to say on this.
Okay. All right.
Now, the next one was the economic model for everybody, just to let them know that we, you know, is that should we, I take away is the second sentence here, does the model does not compare open space acquisition to commercial, multifamily, and other types of development. And I think that's and I've heard that's kind of also in Mr. Pritchard's comments and some other one, and also there's some likewise from the Housing Authority. There's just a tone of, you know, that everything is focused on single family and making it look good. Should we be putting a second example, like we have an example in there for a married family forest in Appendix, I think it's C or D, that should we be adding another example that has, you know, a commercial type of example that may not come out as more as positive, just for transparency.
Yeah. Well, yeah, first of all, I guess there's 3 different things here. One is the model does have a comparison between commercial multifamily and single family residents. The example did not, because it was a real live example that was, you know, that was on the plate at the time. In the comments I gave in to Tom, I tried to clarify the fact that the model does have it, that commercial was not included in this specific example. Remember, you know, a ways back, we took a lot of that stuff out and created a separate document called the Economic Model User Manual that has all that stuff in there. You know, so my view is we have the 2 documents. I would say, and I was coming up later on this thing, you know, I was going to suggest that we offer to zoning and the planning department an opportunity to sit down there and review our points, you know, where we're at. I will point out that this is our document. We don't need anyone's approval other than us, the folks here, to put it out. We want to be factual and correct. But on this one I think that's a clarification. Yeah, we can. I think I do have some examples. You know, the No Wank property one, we ran some, or I ran some that was multifamily. Just the FYI, if you forgot, when you look at commercial, almost any commercial development, if you will, would more than likely have a very positive economic value over the open space values, because it runs like, I think it's like 60 cents on a day. In other words, it costs the town 60 cents for every $1 in taxes, where, you know, single residents, it costs the town like $1.20 for every $1 in taxes. So, I mean, those are generic kinds of discussions. So I can't remember. I think that point is clearly made in the user manual. I don't recall, now that I think about it, if that made it into the overall document. But that's my view, is we have a separate document, you know, maybe, you know, push them more in that direction to kind of look at that document. But that's, you know, that's my view. So let me throw that open for comments. Bray?
Ray, um, I would include a little bit more detail on commercial multifamily and other types of development within this document. Because I hadn't thought about it because we were looking at single family. And of course, there's all sorts of other types of developments that are within the town. And with the economic model, you should be able to apply it to all of these different types of developments. So if we could have just something expand this one a little bit more to give out some information, and then a reference to the standalone document that you were talking about.
Okay, other comments?
I agree with Bray. I think we should put something in here, and I'll work with the text team to put that together and also take a look at one additional alternative sample, just to show that there's some versatility to the model, with a strong recommendation back to the user manual for further detail. So
Okay. The text would be in the user manual.
Yeah.
It does have, right, it does have all that stuff in there. There's one chart specifically that shows the economic impacts of commercial, multifamily, single family, et cetera, that has some of these numbers I talked about, you know, the 90 cents versus $1.20. Maybe that's the right one. But that certainly is available. So you don't have to do research. It's in the user manual.
Yeah, I'll take the
Okay.
action to get that up there.
All right.
Okay, the next one was 6. We agreed with. It was just things. This next one is I'm still kind of going through my mind here. Is the use of the green belt should be changed to greenways throughout. The plan uses these terms interchangeably. I would strongly argue against that. But I think what's happened here is that since the POCD came out, where the POCD went from green breaks to green belts, they put a map together that says green. They talk green belts, but their map title says green ways, proposed greenways. And this is what's caused some of the confusion here, is that we've been using our baseline as those are the green belts, and that we would want to get some certain things of those green belts marked as greenways and get interconnection also with Ledger, New London's, and potentially Stonington's. So I thought I had done a good job of trying to describe green belts as the system that we have, and that greenways is what's approved by the state. Okay, and because what Parks and Recs did in 2019 was take the whole green belt system and throw it to the state, and the state has never responded. Okay. So as of right now, as far as I'm concerned, they're still all green belts, and that's the way I wrote it. So I'd like to get discussion.
It's Kristen, could I add, they're not randomly used interchangeably. I mean, I think we consciously paid attention to which ones were, as you said, state defined versus locally defined. There's a difference. They're not one and the same. And we didn't use them interchangeably. We used them carefully and appropriately.
Yeah, Larry, I mean, I went back and looked at it, and there is definitions of the two. And I guess my only point would be just to double check that we did use them in that sense correctly as a run through. But I think that it does make sense to clarify that and to make sure that we're consistent in our definition. And my view is that, again, part of our job is to provide input to the planning department on conservation. And part of us is to distinguish between state and local green blank, if you will. So I would support that as well.
Okay.
I mean, just to double check it.
Like just some,
Yep.
insert like a definition clarifying why the two terminologies exist, you know?
Yeah, I thought that was in there,
I believe it is.
Kristen. Yeah,
Chapter 2.
now whether it's jumps out at you or not, but I did go through there and I thought I saw that in there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I recall
But
that too.
this again is why I think if we, make an offer, once we get through this, is we make an offer to sit down and, after we've made our decisions, to sit down with the, the planning department and say, we'll offer to go through the decision we've made, et cetera. But my view is our vote is the vote, right, on what we want to do.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Okay.
next
Tugging right along. Yep.
Yeah, a couple of items we agree, but on number 9, this is this written with this one voice. I won't argue that, but I don't know how at what point we want to have somebody be an editorial. But obviously, as you can see here today, I'm taking inputs from everybody and trying to put your sections in there, and we intentionally made it with multi voices.
Well, it is. We're a volunteer organization, and I thought we did go through it a couple of times to make sure that it flows. But
Well, I know I can tell you that Kristen and Ann have done they've tried their best to get it's correcting my terminologies and making sure that it tries to flow. But I don't know, obviously it could always be improved, but I don't think it's worth at this point doing much more on that one. So
And I would point out, it's Kristen, that yes, it does have a number of authors. That's a recommendation. Maybe they want to rewrite it, so it's written in one voice. I mean, we've written it as is. I think it makes sense. There are different authors. I don't think we have to do anything about that.
okay.
the next item was for one that's assigned to the data. This is one of the 2 items for the data teams, that the number of maps shall document show areas, certain habitat. This document will be viewed so if these maps are overlaid on a map of the town, it's just open place. I don't know how to do that with the technology. And I think this is really Michelle more than Bray. Nothing against Bray, but I don't know if you're maneuvering. I could tell from Michelle seemed to be the one that was doing all the layers per se. So, but that's the one of the 2 items for the data team. So we'll pass on that. Now, when we start getting into specific page number stuff here, the first one here for everybody was whether we want to approve or adopt. The POCD is adopted, okay, as opposed to approve. I had put down approved because I just did it. So I have no problem moving it to adopted if everybody agrees to use the word adopted.
Wouldn't the town have to adopt it?
Not necessarily, because it was the POCD was adopted by the planning commission, and then it was briefed to the town council.
Well, let me buck that one to Bruce and Bray, our historian here. In terms of the proper use of approved versus adopted, because it's by us, all right? So we could choose whichever word we want, I think, unless there's some historic precedent. So, Bray, any view from your side?
I don't have a problem with changing it to adopted. We asked for comments on the outside, and this is coming back from the planning department. And it's the type of terminology it appears to me that they're used to using. And because we're referring to the plan of conservation development, as well as other parts of the town regulations, to be on the same page for the same type of vocabulary. So if adopted is better than approved, that's fine with me.
I'll make it so.
Bruce, do you want to comment?
Well, I mean, my only comment on that is, this came from Deb, but I know the terminology adopted implies that, it's going to be used as a future model and something that would be referred to during, recommendations, not just a plan that was approved. So adopted's kind of more implied that it's a guide and a reference document. I think also where the term adopted came from was whether or not the commission wants to have the council look at this and whether they want to adopt the plan as well. And that's really up to you how you want to go about town council's involvement in this. Do you want the town council to adopt it? Or do you want them to just recommend that they accept it? Or I'm not sure. That's something else to consider. There's kind of two points there.
Well, I'm okay with adopted. I went back and just quickly looked, Ray, at the original one from 90.
Yep.
It just says prepared. Didn't use either word. So
Safe route.
the safe right. So adopted is, to me, sounds like weaker. I don't mean it to be weak in the negative sense, but it then allows us to go forward and ask the town council to approve it, or sort of something beyond adoption. So I'm okay with adopted. I don't think it has a legal definition at all.
Okay.
So Bruce is agreeing with that. Okay.
Yeah, no legal implication, just
Okay.
terminology.
Okay. Moving along here to the next one is on page 6 here, the second paragraph. I use the terminology of Conservation Commission doesn't have a charter. It's unclear where the list came from. The original list of responsibilities comes out of this ABC document that's listed on the town website that was approved by the town council and the RTM. And it lists it's a package. Now, I don't know what those individual pages are called. That's when I use the word charter, because I didn't know what to call them. And so,
yeah, well, it does say on that page, first appeared in the charter adopted November 8th, 1966, established by town council resolution.
But that's the town charter it's referencing.
Correct.
And that's it doesn't really apply to that individual pay of the responsibilities of that individual page. So I didn't know. I can try to weasel word around it. I think that if we'll take it as a text team, but I just wanted to point that out and let everybody know that that's, I didn't have any better words to use at the time, so I used the word charter. Obviously, we're getting called on that, and I have no problem with that.
Well, it's responsibilities that have been assigned to us by the town council.
Right.
So maybe if you change it to that, because I went and double checked it, and what it says is exactly what we put in there.
Yeah.
Right? So that's fine. And I guess the word charter versus
yeah. I agree that charter is the wrong word, and so I just wanted to.
Power. What it says is powers and duties.
Yeah.
So maybe it's by which the Constitution meets its powers and duties, responsibilities assigned by the town council.
And we will update that as a text team.
Okay.
Okay. And the next one was will act as a buffer for ground, suggest change this to will to may, and that I don't have any agreed things there, and the recommending enforcement of the zoning regulation, all enforcement by state statute. I just want to put this out to everybody that, and I'll correct these, removing the reference of enforcement. Also, I will take all these on to correct those, but I just want to let you know I kind of focus on these, that we kind of overstepped our bounds to some degree.
Yep, we got a little pushy.
Yeah,
which is okay.
Okay, now moving on to page 7, which is the consider replacing the phrase enduring social justice with enduring equitable distribution of parks and open space. I don't know where this comes from. The standardized terminology that's being used by the state is social justice. I had never heard of ensuring equitable distribution of parks and open space. And I didn't know, they agree with us, the concept needs to be there, but the standardization of terminology, I'm kind of questioning.
Well, remember when we changed the index from social justice because we felt there was some confusion of that term? So, and I think we changed it to, what did we change it to? I'm just looking at it right now. Availability of open space throughout the community. I mean, we change it, you know, section 2.8. So I think we agreed as a body that social justice today is now means, you know, racial equality and some other things. Now, this is the formal term used by right, historically been used. So we got a little bit of a problem of what officially the state says versus, you know, gee, well, so I'm struggling with doing this. I don't want to arbitrarily change the definition that the state used. Yeah, Kristen?
Could I add? Kristen, yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, part of the problem with ensuring equitable distribution is that the west side of town is very densely developed with the city. So there really is no opportunity for open space over there. So as much as you would like to plunk some open space over there, there's no land available. So you know, the idea is good, but in reality, I'm not sure that it's actually possible, you know, in terms of new open space.
Oh, look, great.
Right. Ensuring social justice, I think, should be taken out. It's being thrown around for lots of reasons right now, you know, politically and out in the open, and where maybe rephrasing ensuring equitable distribution of parks and open space, that I think defines it much better than just ensuring social justice. Because when you say social justice, as everybody's been saying, that raises certain flags depending upon what you read or hear and so forth. But it doesn't apply to necessarily directly to open space, where equitable distribution of parks and open space. I also agree that the city has a difficult time because they don't have much land to offer up because they are so densely built out. But on the other hand, if there are any opportunities, certainly we encourage it. So I wouldn't necessarily hold it against the city because they don't have as much open land as we do in the town. That's the nature of what we're dealing with. So I wouldn't necessarily hold that against the city. And I wouldn't necessarily looking at equitable distribution of parks and open space. I don't want to get into, we've promoted Noank, this Noank school site as a park. And then now all of a sudden we have to come back and offer something up in the city. I don't see us, I don't want to get into that direction whatsoever. And I don't think anywhere in our document we're doing that. But ensuring social justice, I just don't like that expression within our document here.
From the text team now, I appreciate everybody's discussions here, and we will ensure that we are in line with what is in section 2.8 and we'll change the words. Okay, I got that action.
All right, I have another suggestion here. In our criteria, I was looking for that concept, and the closest thing was proximity. Is this parcel easy accessible to residential neighborhoods? If that text is modified, perhaps to get this flavor in there, so it's in the criteria.
Yeah.
I think that would also be a move in the right direction.
Okay.
But I mean, so I agree. None of us like the word social justice, but again, we change it to the term. We agreed to use the term availability of open space throughout the community. So just consider that. We need to be consistent between what we put in the index and what's in the text.
Sure. We got it.
All right.
Moving along. The rest of these are text team items. The next thing that comes up here is, again, the charter issue versus the guidebook. We already discussed that. It's the second time on that. And then we have the zoning. And the next all item is the zoning commission proposal did not zone privately owned parcel as green district. The zoning map should not be used as a mechanism to expand open space. I agree with that. The zoning commission has zoned the entire town, and they've identified the areas that are currently open space, large chunks of it. And I outlined that in there, and I put some notes in there in regard to the spot zoning that's down in another comments further on. But the question, I don't know if she wants the zoning map out of the thing, just leave the discussion and then take the zoning map out of the document. That's why I was asking for everybody, because it really, I have a discussion in there in regard to the GC and the definitions of the two zoning districts, the green districts. We have the map, but I don't know if the map really identifies anything. So should we take the map out? I was looking for kind of concurrence on zapping that. Save a page.
Well, I think the point is there's a text thing that says, the Groton zoning map did not designate any new areas of open space. So I think the point that says it's not the zoning responsibility to designate open space. So I actually kind of agree with that. So, that paragraph and, the zoning map per se, I mean, if you took that paragraph, I mean, I'll leave it with the text team, but I think if you address that paragraph, then the zoning map per se isn't a negative. It's just a reality. But I wouldn't have a problem either way. But I do think that there's a point that's a valid point, that zoning doesn't establish open space per se.
Oh yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
We'll ensure the text indicates that, and we'll. But as far as I was just looking for the map, because there are a lot of maps in here and figures and stuff, and it does change also. So
Yeah.
As zoning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with taking the zoning map out, but that's.
Could I say something about that? I don't think, so the first part of that comment was mine. The second part, Deb added after she looked at it. I can't imagine she's trying to say, take the zoning map out of the plan. I don't think that's the suggestion. I think what she's trying to say here is, zoning is the mechanism for acquiring open space. I don't think she's suggesting that you take out the map, because it holds a useful purpose in the plan.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, we'll update the words and to make sure they include all those comments. Moving along here, text next. Now the next thing was in regard to the fourth paragraph here relative to Public Act 490. House tax significant role. We agree. The paragraph should be expanded to note that Groton allows reduced assessments for only forest and farm purposes. The criteria for each should be explained. We should also explain the consequences for developing parcel designated as form has only lasted 10 years. We did check over the, I just want to point out that she's looking for more definition as far as the execution of the program. I kind of stayed away from all that intentionally because the program is really part of the assessor's thing. I don't know how much more I'm going to put into here. But it sounded like she really wanted, or you guys I guess this is to Bruce, did you guys really want all this additional information that's really part of the assessors and the execution of the program in there?
No, we're not
just
looking
information for us.
It's just information.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Can we go back for a second?
Sure.
one of the things we've had on the Conservation Commission in the past, discussion about 490, is it is one of the very few tax abatements that you can put on your property if you have a lot of, they've got a big piece of property with one house on it, and it's all, let's say, forested, and you want to take a tax advantage by not developing it, let's say, putting additional structures on it, that we encourage it. The problem is that it doesn't really have the teeth in it that it goes for 10 years, the penalty phase, but you can continue it beyond the 10-year time indefinitely and continue that tax advantage. Theoretically, everybody says that after about the third year of the 10 years, the penalty greatly diminishes. So even if you hung on to it for 8 years, got a good tax advantage, and then turned it into a developable, sold it as for development, you still had, the penalty wasn't that great. There was one other act the state of Connecticut had that came out 40 years ago, something like the 50-year plan or something. And it had a lot more teeth to it. The problem was the land trust ran into a problem that at the end of that 50-year period, the landowner wanted to donate the land to the land trust, and there was a great deal of penalties and tax considerations and so forth that nobody was prepared to know how onerous it was. So we're looking for some sort of other middle ground. And we've never taken the stand on the conservation side in the past that we're going to tell people about 490 if they didn't already know. It was just one that we feel that it's great that people are taking advantage of it if that encourages them to keep it as forest. So,
Yeah,
so at some point in the future, a future conversation on some other time is what else could we do to put a little bit more teeth in this thing so that if they want to get rid of it within a short period of time, it's going to cost them.
yeah. But Larry, I agree with Bray is that it's almost that from a Conservation Commission point of view, this is not something we recommend or push. It's not the path to get open space because it's so weak. And so maybe it implies, because of the text in there, that we support it as a viable way of protecting open space. And, based upon what Bray said, and I agree with him, is it doesn't really, I mean, it's not a preferred mechanism to achieve open space, and that's not in the paragraph. So, my recommendation would be to, I won't say water it down because but maybe add something that says that, this isn't the preferred preservation of open space, from us, from the Conservation Commission. Is that a fair comment, Bray?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take action to include that. The reason we had even put 490 in here was as a mechanism, because it shows up in our recommendations for expansion of the green belts, as far as mechanisms to getting continuity on the green belts. So.
Yep.
Also in the data team, we were looking at the town's maps of those properties within the town that are under 490 currently. And some of those 490 parcels are of potential connectors in the green belt system, if you will. And I've forgotten whether or not that's one of the maps, if that's included in one of the maps that we have in our document.
It is one of the maps you do have. We do have the 490 properties identified, both
Okay.
the forest and the agriculture.
Right. Oh, I guess someplace in here, somebody said that, just a quick, short explanation that the forest is 25 acres and you have to have a minimum of 25. It doesn't have to be contiguous. And for farm, I've forgotten exactly, it's not the size, but it's that you're actively can show that you're farming. Tax receipts or something like that. So is it maybe a little bit more of an explanation to say what is actually
Okay,
490 forest, what's actually 490 farm?
gotcha. We'll ensure that that gets updated as an action for the text team. Moving along here, I'll text. Next item was on page 16. Does an assessor concur? This is for everybody's information. I know that Larry has talked to the assessor. I have personally talked to the assessor. She has understood this, but has not personally conducted a self-assessment to validate Larry's stuff because it was fairly arduous. And when she explained it to me, that she hasn't taken it on, she does agree that the general trend on a national basis is this. And she feels that Groton is typically, it reflects the national trends. And so she would not dismiss it out of hand that, no, this is totally garbage. So she would lean to say what we said is correct with just the general terminologies.
Yeah,
That's
well,
right.
I would say there's significant, expensive studies
Yeah.
that prove the point. I don't know of any counter studies that disprove the point. So even though we didn't do the study in Groton per se, it does, so I stand by it because it certainly is done in, I think 3 or 4 that are in the reference documents, by the way. You could point to it. So I would say yes. I have had discussions with the assessor. I've made changes to the document based upon my discussions with her. So I don't know what I would change.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I made one change, Tom. I think in the edit I sent you, I said long term, which is the point. Generally, you say, oh, in the long term. That's why I added the long term to it, because in agreement with Mary, it was you can't put a tax on it, but what happens when the properties turn over, people pay more because it is there, and over time, which is what she agreed with, yeah, it would kind of adjust. So I did make those changes to the document already, I think.
Gotcha.
So yep,
I'll take
I'm
those
okay
on.
with that. So,
Yep. Okay. Moving along here, page 17, third bullet on the page. Well, this is one of the things that we voted on was the word natural waters. And so I didn't want, as far as from the text team, I didn't know, we really hadn't defined natural waters, but it was, yeah, I don't know what to say about this.
I don't remember that in the text. Do you remember what the reference
This is it's one of the priorities. I can bring the text up.
Yeah, we did vote on the priorities, and it does say natural waters and drinking water resources.
There may be another planning vocabulary word other than natural.
Yeah.
That is, when you see it by itself, it's a puzzler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if you meant, rivers, streams, aquifers, things like that, or it just wasn't too clear reading it. That's really the only comment. What exactly is meant by the term natural waters. Yeah, I mean, that was the whole comment.
Doesn't include swimming pools?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it doesn't. That's not natural waters, but okay.
Mm.
Is
We could just
normally-
add
I
a
don't-
little, we could add natural waters such as rivers, streams, lakes, you know,
Is there-
catchment ponds.
I guess my
whatever.
question back to Bruce is there a better terminology that you guys use in the planning area? Because it's like water features. I see that every so often in some of the planning documents.
Yeah, I've seen that, natural water features.
Okay. We will take action to get that updated then.
Or natural water systems, either one.
I will do some research and take that one on. Okay, text. The next one was the the issue here is the reason we have this is all in regard to the subdivisions, and there's a long laundry list that was in the 1990 version of the open space plan. And so I just rolled that over and then did my best to add to it from a historical basis. And so the question here is, and it's in part of the text in section 2 as the history. And so now I'm getting caught as far as on, how accurate does this thing have to be? And my question, I guess, is more to Bray as far as why did you guys put in the list of all the open space subdivisions back in 1990? And do we need to have that now? Because if it's in the inventory, they'll show up in the inventory, but do I need to have them as a list in the text?
You do not need to have it in the list as a text. It was put in the list in 1990 at that point to illustrate that we had open spaces, or we were acquiring open spaces being added to the town, and we were given examples to that. So at that time frame, we felt that it was an important aspect to include in the document. But in this time frame, because a lot of things have changed, we've added a great deal of other properties. Gosa and Avalonia have all added properties. We don't need to have that list there.
Okay, I will adjust the text then. I appreciate that history. Moving along here, fixed. The next thing is open space listing is not comprehensive. This is the same question. I got hit up again, so that'll be coming out. We'll take that out. Text, and then the maps. These are the two maps from 1990. My scanner, you had the 19 pre and then and then post. I think it's from 69 and then from the current plan from 1990. Does somebody have a bigger scanner that I can put this stuff on and put those in there, or do I not need to have those two historical documents in there? Is the question I've got for the group.
I did scan it in. I was just trying to find it to see if it was like a better picture.
If you can, because my scanner truncated it off because because those are fold out pages, and you got to have a pretty big scanner.
Are those the maps of the original open space proposals? I don't
I
remember.
don't know. They're in the gray plan in the middle of the book. They say the figure 169 conservation map and 1990 conservation map. But there's kind of big squares. They're like 12 by 12, and my scanner doesn't do it.
Right.
I could try to help with that.
Okay, so I will see if Bruce, if you can, you still have they're in the book, so you should have. So I don't know if you got the book there, but if you can find somebody that's the only reason is truncated is because my scanner isn't big enough. I did my best to kind of center them and get 95% of the information, but.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now. Yeah, I can I'll try to make it look better.
Okay. I will just turn that over to Bruce. Okay, and then moving on to the next thing was all the missing education. On the page 26, the reason I'm asking here help is that I will source all the maps and dates and stuff. That's not a problem. But the Mystic Education Center and Oral School, there's some items on that. But what I don't have is, and this kind of to some degree works with the data team, as far as the Mystic Education Center, it's DEP property. And they're supposed to be, and they're offering a portion, like half of it's like 70 acres, 35 to be leased out, and the other for commercial purposes. And there's a proposal right now that's going through development. And then the other 35 acres, but I don't know what 35 acres there are, and how that split is, and who's working with DEP. And that's come and so that's when we show stuff, it shows that whole 35 acres. The whole 70 acres, because it's all DEP, because we don't know which part is. And so I guess that's the real question as far as, what was the conservation, I guess this is to Bruce, as far as on what were you guys really talking about here? Or what are you trying to get us to do differently?
Yeah, sure. So the parcel on the maps is, like you just said, it's all shown as open space. The portion that's going to be held by DEP and will be open space, that line has already been determined. And I believe at some point during this, I sent out the map that showed exactly where that line was on that property. And I sent it to everyone. I think.
Yeah, now you're, okay.
Yeah, I can resend it too, but if you could somehow, and obviously Jenna or Michelle could work on this too, if you could somehow update those maps to show only that portion that will be under DEP control, not the entire parcel.
Okay, well then, Bray, this one's turning over to you as a new data item.
Oh, here's Michelle now.
Joined us.
Hey,
Hey,
Right on
we're
cue.
just talking about you.
all right. Let the record show that Michelle has joined the call.
Yeah. And
Up till 1:30 my time, 7:30 your time.
Bruce did send us out maps of the Oral School property, or Mystic Education Center property, as they want to call it now, showing where the DEP has control for open space and where the other is going to be commercial. So because we looked at those maps, Michelle and I worked on a little bit of that when she was putting together the property list. So it is, yes. And they're right that that's what we ought to refer to, is only that portion of it.
Okay, so I'll just turn this one over to the data team, and we'll let you guys sort this item out as we move forward. The next item, page 27, other comments. Obviously, not all open space. The last sentence refers to detailed information database maintained in the Christian. Whereas the database, they're asking the question, I think the database is what we're maintaining, just like we have information that we're maintaining on our workbook shelves in regard to, and so I guess this is really for the data team working with Bruce, as far as we say contact, in other places, like to get information about the economic model, we say, we put a statement in there about contacting the commission or Bruce in the planning department. I think maybe, do we need to have the same thing here in regard to the index, the referencing, and who to get updates about it and stuff? That's
yeah,
why.
if that was to me, I think that's the intention on that. If you're going to have a database, at least have it accessible for staff to distribute when asked.
Okay, I will put an update in there.
And it doesn't have to be now. Obviously, it's whenever it's finalized.
All right, I was just going to mention that, Michelle, that when we do a final version of this, that the database you've collected, a copy of it gets sent to Bruce, whether it's locked or unlocked. Same way I took my model and I sent it to Bruce so that it's there in the town's repository if somebody wanted to ask for it.
And they have, so.
Yeah. I've gotten no questions back, by the way, on the model. This is I keep waiting.
Okay,
Anyway,
just to keep moving
Okay.
along here. Fourth paragraph, the next one is we've already talked about, that's the Greenway, Greenbelt interchangeability. And this is the map C6, appears to be a potential greenways. That's again the Greenway and the GIS, and we're going to use our items and we'll fix all that with the maps. Moving along, again, this is going back to single family development. We already talked about that, so I'll make sure that that's discussed properly. And then these next ones on page, the open space developable land, this really applied. This is all single family stuff. Again, more single family tax implications. Larry's already addressed those issues, and so I'm not going to go through any further discussion here. Moving along, it's all text team. And then this is the overlay question again that they're asking for. This is your other one from the data team. Can you overlay these way somehow? And I don't know how to do that. So this is for the data team. Moving along here, text, and then Greenway, Greenbelt system, again, comment. So we've already talked about that. And so again, this is a dual thing with Mystic Education Center and the Greenbelt expansion. So we've already talked about that. 490 program, we've already talked about that. This is where this shows again. I'm not going to go over spending more time with that. And then moving along, text. Zoning regulations, application ordinance. This was more of a comment. Why does the recommendation address only subdivision regulations? I think, Larry, you've already discussed, we're now in the recommendations here. So the reason we had made a recommendation regarding subdivision regulations is because that's an actionable area that we could see. So I don't know where else we could go with this. And then this is the recommendation relative to the tree, putting some teeth to the regulation relative to offsets in regard to if your subdivision gets cut, you have to take down trees? How do you supplement those? And we made proposals relative to the subdivisions. And I guess the planning people are asking why is it just the subdivision? I don't know of any other way. If you give commercial coming in here and they level stuff, I guess this is a question to Bruce. What regulations are in place in regard to that we could enforce or change within the town to set up a mechanism for replanting of trees to maintain the overall tree canopy within the town at 60% or 61% that we're at right now? And I targeted subdivisions because I knew that existed. I don't know about other, I'm not aware of any other zoning type or planning regulations that come into play that could be changed to have a new requirement added to them for offsetting the trees that would be destroyed.
Sure, zoning regulations. And so the zoning the subdivision regulations would only regulate subdivision developments, and we haven't seen many of those at all. I mean, I haven't done one subdivision since I've got here, and it's been 2 years, so we don't get many of those. That's why I was thinking zoning regulations would be a much better place to regulate this. We see a ton of zoning applications, whether it be new commercial uses, multifamily uses, industrial uses, anything like that. It would be much more projects that would clear land, and you'd be able to capture a lot more under the zoning regulations. And it could be redevelopment sites, it can be newly developed sites, but we were just thinking you could put something in there to recommend a zoning regulation amendment too. I'm actually working on it right now, and to try to find a way to, if trees are cut down on a property, how to try to regain that and require an equal canopy. I'm looking through that right now. So I think it could be beneficial to have both.
Okay, and I appreciate that recommendation, and I will try to incorporate it. It may end up, it would be two different recommendations, though, one for the subdivisions and then one for the zoning regs, right? If we're gonna have recommendations, keep them split and not lump them together, I think, because it'd be
Yeah,
two different actions.
Yeah, up to you. Either way, just it'd be good to tie it into zoning somehow.
Okay,
I have a question for Tom.
yes,
After reading the comments from the planning department, which Bruce, you can pass on. Thank you very much for your due diligence. You guys did even though there are some tough responses here, but we really appreciate it. All the fine work you guys did. Anyway, if I was just thinking on Flanders Road, it's commercial property. It has not been developed at all. It's been out there to the world to come develop me. And as you drive by and you go over to the transfer station, it's all woods. And you're talking about subdivisions that when they put the houses in, you want to replace the canopy cover or the forest cover somehow to stay at this magic number of 60% coverage. On these commercial properties, that when you look at the zoning map, that if economic development happens, those lands that right now that are forest are going to be totally cleared for, potentially for some project, a commercial project, some large building. And I believe in the regulations there are for around parking areas, maybe the entranceway, to come in and landscape, which includes trees, but it will never be the same sort of tree cover that you had prior to that. So I don't know how you would deal with that. You're thinking on something on that size. If a commercial comes in and let's say takes 100 acres and clear cuts it, EV comes in and builds all kinds of buildings in there to support their submarine work, for instance.
well, one of the things that we had looked at in the draft that I've been working on for the subdivision regulations was some type of offset that if you don't do it, you don't have to do the trees on your property. You could do it someplace else in the town, okay? As one alternative.
I remember seeing that comment here is to say, nobody is keeping any inventory about where you potentially could put trees in if you're going to put a subdivision in, some other piece of property. I don't know that anyone wants to even make the time to make a list of that. But so I don't know if that's a workable. I understand what you're trying to say, but in reality, I don't know who's going to keep track of that and what property you're going to pick, and or whoever owns that property, are they going to be agreeable?
Well, I think that's why we're only taking a look at this as a recommendation action item to take a look at what can we do to maintain the canopy as best we can. And we don't need to sort out everything here today, but it's going to be a further action item for FY, calendar year 21, 22 or whatever as a midterm project. Whether or not it says it happens, I don't know, but at least it's an area that I think we can go take a look at in the future, and leave it at that at this point. And you bring up a good point in regard to potentially development of an inventory. Okay, And then the second item was essentially the same thing. And then the duties of tree advisory board should be detailed in the narrative, and I'll see what I can do with that. But I just wanted to point out this one to everybody relative to they're looking that they thought we should be putting more information in there. So in the trees section.
Right. There is, I was just trying to find it. There is a reference in the Connecticut statutes about the tree advisory board. I couldn't quite find it, but it's in that same section, code 15-5-38. So it's in there. It's in the Connecticut bylaws someplace. I thought you had that once, Tom.
Yeah, I'll get that in. I will update that also. Okay, moving along then. Keep going here. It's already coming up on 6:30 here. We text. I'm just skipping over the text things. And I thought this was kind of interesting. Recommendations should appear to conflict each other. Will the commission support an application of the RTH does not target areas identified by the Nations Network? That was never the intent. The intent here was to supporting any information. And so that was the intent, is not to only use one methodology here. And I'll make sure that the text gets cleaned up to reflect that. So it's clear. And then moving along was the next, this may conflict with the POCD that direct development, disturbed land concerning revising public requisition should be considered as part of any former school redevelopment. I don't know if I saw a conflict. I know that that the schools are essentially, there's this public recreation facilities on all the school properties right now. And so they're being monitored in the Parks and Rec master plan. And so this is what I was kind of scratching my head. And maybe Bruce, do you have any insight on what you guys were concerned about here on this one, recommendation number 3 on page 58?
No, I don't think that one came from me, and I'm trying to think what was meant by that. I can get back to you on that, give further clarification.
Yeah, because this one I didn't really understand as far as what the conflict was.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the only reason we were updating is there wasn't anything wrong with the regulation. It was just to add to the regulations was the issue on this recommendation 4, which is the tree. It goes back to the planting of the trees again. So, but we'll sort those out. Moving along. The next item here was Conservation Commission has not been assigned responsibility to assure development of long-term stewardship plans. And this kind of goes back to, we've kind of done things on the stewardship plan that have superseded to some degree the definitions and where we're going here. And what I'm thinking here is that the way that the plan was written initially was that we were taking responsibility in the wording that we used for if it's not on the master list with Parks and Rec, it's not a Board of Ed property or it's not a public works thing, that we felt that we had some ownership. But what and for this would include everything that's left over. And I think that's taking on too much responsibility for us, and that we need to kind of back off. And what I'm thinking right now is that we should make sure that the stewardship plan that we've developed is kind over the last month here is in concert with the current version of the plan, and that it de-scopes ourselves down to basically just the smaller areas that we're looking at in the future. These 4 or 5 smaller areas. That are properties that are greater than 10 acres and not on the Parks and Rec master plan, which basically gets you something like the Joel property and some of these other properties that there's no plans for. And then, so if everybody agrees that the stewardship plans that, as we've been working that, just needs to be reflected back into section 4.2, as far as on, those terminologies are in sync. Is anybody, any objection to that?
It's Larry. I'm trying to think it through. I mean, it says that Conservation Commission may be the steward of such areas with the town council's approval. So I think if you're talking about specific areas, then the recommendation would be is we'd identify those areas and then as part of our recommendations, volunteer to support that with the commission's approval. I mean, was that where you were going, Tom?
Yeah, so I think that the way the text was originally wrote, I was under the assumption that by default, because nobody else had it, obviously it was our responsibility to go worry about it. But I think that was an overreach.
Yeah, it's not by default, it's with approval of the town council. But
Okay.
we could certainly identify those and go to the town council and say, hey, or push for it independently to get somebody to do it if it's not us.
Right.
So maybe it's a may, not a shall.
Yeah.
Well, in all this, we're concerned with all the properties in the town that the town owns as open space that has some sort of stewardship plan, management plan, but it's one where we are advisory. And if there isn't any plan that exists, Parks and Rec or some other entity within the town on that particular property, we would come in and make a suggestion. And then once we make a suggestion, it would fall into whoever's responsible for overseeing that particular piece of property. So we're advisory concept and we're not looking, I don't think, to take on any sort of management of properties legislatively, but rather volunteering our time to help facilitate it. That's the way I would see it.
I agree with you, and I need to make sure that the words say that. And these are very valid comments, both this one here on 4.21 and 4.24. Now I'll take it as a text team. We'll go back and take a look at those words to make sure that they reflect just what Bray said. Thank you. This is the tax assessor reviewing model. Larry, we've already talked about that with Larry and his comments. This whole pre-post tax assessment, so I won't go into that. That land protection, this kind of is what we were talking about just previously in recreational easements. So we'll make sure that these are comments also with page 64. And then they asked about whether the open space ordinance has been reviewed by Parks and Rec, and then we are coordinating that. So there was just a comment there. And then this section 7.1, this list differs from the implementation list of the POCD. Both timing responsibility sections have been changed. Yeah, we added them, and the plan should not state that it's the same as the PCOD's list. Well, I took the action items out of the POCD, brought them over to this list, and it wasn't the intent to say that they're the same, that they're identical. Their actions are from the POCD, that we're tracking the ones that are our responsibilities for duplication. So I'm kind of scratching my head on what you guys were, what the comment really was here. Bruce, did you have any more as far as on what you were looking for from this one?
When we went over this, I remember Deb saying that it's not the same list as the POCD, and maybe, to go off what you said, maybe it's just a little clarification, more clarification. Who was saying, this is take it from the POC and it's not exactly the same, or just clarification where it came from. I think it just implies that it's straight from the POCD, copy and paste.
Okay, and what,
Okay.
well, selected action items are, so, okay, are cut and pasted, and then we put it into different formats. So I will do a clarification there. And then this is Parks and Rec, Conservation, Open Uses, you know, will be, this, I think this is just an addition, just to, so everybody understands that the responsibility should be Parks and Recs, are called as lead agencies for this action. And so we'll correct those. And likewise for planning and zoning commissions, we'll correct all these. I just wanted to highlight these on the action items. So I'm not going to get too much into this. And then we talked about this one already, and we talked to planning and zoning. I just left these as all just to let people know that they are that they took exception with some of the comments here, because these were action items. I just want to make sure that this before that we were all aware of those. And our clerk's office, and then now this is the other data, or the area for data here. There's 75 acres with 10 3/4 of the way down. Kolonowski School, not Oak Run open space. And then Glen White Kerry Farm and open space parcels are noted to be commercial. These are both residential subdivisions. So I don't know what's going on there, but I'll let the data team worry about those two.
What, I don't even know what the Kerry Farm is.
I don't remember that, but I can take a look at those things on my list.
Right. And then significant areas, why are their numbers, why are lower numbers better? Commission recommends not purchasing flood-prone areas. Does the commission think the town should not buy flood-prone areas to limit development of volatile risk? The reason we had put coast in the recommendations here in regard to coastline is we didn't want to be buying something that's going to flood with it immediately, but we wanted to be more proactive in buying things that would be ready, that would be a new coast, where the new coastline would be, rather than buying, seabed, was the intent. And so I'll go back, if everybody agrees that that's what our intent still is, not to be buying future seabed, to make sure that the wording is here, to make sure that.
Yeah, that was the intent, right, is to protect that which will become a future floodplain area. Yeah.
Well, we were proposing that, right, new coastline, and looking inland, that once it starts flooding,
Yeah.
right, what the next shoreline is. And you're absolutely right that we're not looking to purchase flood-prone areas, which, let's say, I'll say Groton Long Point. We're not proposing that we buy their homes up, anticipation that where the house is, that's going to be the next shoreline. That was
okay, I appreciate these words, because these, I'll try to get these more, because I can see where she's coming from, because I struggled with these words originally, and I will try to get these fixed up better and as the text team, and I appreciate the insight. I've got the notes there. Moving on to Appendix E, they wanted addresses. I've already working on all those. The reason I left, there's a number of conservation is not listed here. This was just an action item that was, the Appendix E was our best guess at this time. I do have all the addresses for the stuff that I've verified, but I'll just leave it that this is a future, I'll put a note in here that this is a limited knowledge, and that we do have an action item to expand this with additional record searches in the future.
Right, it's a partial list. Yep.
Yeah, partial list, right. I'll explain that in the text.
When Michelle was putting her list together, we were scratching our heads, and this goes to Bruce. that the town, the planning department statement that there are a number of conservation easements not listed here. We didn't know where that list was. And the list that Michelle, I understand, got from the town of open space properties did not include a list of easements.
Nope, not to my knowledge.
So Bruce, we'd be more than happy to know where they are and if they exist, because they weren't, Michelle got her list from what, Jenna? Is that?
Yep.
And she doesn't know of any.
I know, we had asked for that easement list too, we just never got it.
Okay, I will try to find it if it exists, to know where it is. Hopefully it's not just to historical knowledge of, where they are and that there's more of them and that it's documented. I'll look into it and try to get you that.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
then moving along here, the next one was this kind of goes back to the overlays that if you've got, how do you put everything together? And I think we've talked about our 7 priorities. We've talked about individual things. What you're supporting trees, you're supporting sea level rise, you're supporting habitats. And I don't know if this was what, there's no master list where I integrate everything together on it, with all these things to come up with, hey, this is the highest priority. The way we focused the plan development was working down our priority list. And so that's, I'm kind of a little bit lost. And maybe Bruce, do you have any background as far as on what this question was or the comment?
Well, I just want to see what page 92 looks like. Just a minute.
So this is what we're doing next. I mean, isn't this what we said our next action item is to take those properties and figure all those things out?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So it's just maybe a clarification in Appendix F that says this is not prioritized and is a follow-on action
Yeah. Okay.
of the commission. And I think there's an action someplace that says that, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, just point back to the action, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, all the work hasn't been done yet.
Yeah. Okay. And this kind of goes with the same thing we already talked about, the Municipal Education Center. So that completes this stuff. And then there was one other one, was the comments from the Sue Sutherland that had that. Where's this one? Oh wait, I'm bringing the wrong thing up here. Let's see. Sue Sutherland. Okay. Let me get these down to a single page. And now she had we got 2 sets of comments from the planning and zoning. Sue's a member, and Mr. Pritchard is the chair. She talked a lot about her comments relative to the executive summary and stuff. And she got to page 6, then a list of 7 priorities follows on the same page. Would recommend the Conservation Commission put each of these priorities into the same action format as the first to clearly define what the Conservation Commission is proposing. So this is in the executive summary, so I don't know if she's looking for, I guess she's looking for me to take a look at terminology and the formatting of the executive summary. And I will take a look at that, but I didn't know if anybody else had any other comments relative to the executive summary and the formatting of it.
I mean, if you read it, it says later on, it's discussed within the plan with recommendations later on.
Yeah.
I mean, if you bring up all the recommendations, it's no longer an executive summary.
Yeah,
But
I tend to agree with you. But this was a comment, so I at this point I'll take a second look at it, but that's about it. I don't really see changing anything there. The text was going to take care of these other comments on page 15, 17, 21, the section.
Can you back up for a second?
Sure.
On the farm south, where was this sheep farm south comment?
I think I've got it up here right.
no, that yeah, I got to go down.
Down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there it is, page 21.
There you go.
Both those properties, I wonder if we were just to leave them out. Only because they're, at the moment, they're very active, but I don't know if we really need them in the document.
Well, we have an action item and everything tied to Sheep Farm South, saying we're gonna, if things come up and GOSA needs additional support, we would support them.
But I don't think this is a sort of a long-term document, and what you're talking about is something that's hopefully very short-term. You know, maybe in the next few months or possibly year. But our emphasis on the sheep farm, I think, is something within the commission, but not necessarily needs to go to the document. Because this is a long-range document that covers a lot of bases, and those are only 2 properties out of a whole list of open space properties that Michelle's been generating lists for. So my feeling is, you know, what makes them special that they get into the document where the others don't?
Well, I think it's fair on page 29 to be deleted because they're not existing yet. In the action items where we support the pursuit of those properties that's okay. But this comment is on 29, which just says we have these properties, and technically that's correct. It's not a done deal yet.
Right.
Okay. Well, we'll fix the words to reflect the current status and the actions that the commission is taking. Moving along on sections, she just said, the texting is, we took no action on this one on the open floor. This is kind of, she's more talking about what should show up in your in our workbook for stewardship items. You know, consider, should we give a large topic to evasive management? And I don't think it belongs in the open space conservation plan. It belongs in our stewardship section. And so that's come,
Yep.
I'm not recommending any changes here. That's what this
No,
whole thing is about, Japanese silk grass and
Yeah, totally agree.
Agree.
and then she goes into this next whole section in regard, this kind of spreads out the conservation benefit, including section on the on the social equality aspects. I think we've already talked about this. Proposed action for each proposed action, recommended time frame completion for those 27 recommendations. Because I was at steps. This is where I kind of lose it again. You know, there's no, she's basically saying that there's been no consultation with and changes zoning regulations to help facilitate these changes. Well, we're drafting up things. I think we're out. She's getting a little ahead of ourselves and taking us to task for saying that we're not talking to the town staff and stuff. But I don't know what she wants us to do here in regard to changing anything. I think these, again, all just comments.
Well, I think some of the action items, she's looking for timeframes, and we haven't gotten there.
I agree. We just put everything into short-term, mid-term, and long-term and then put a range on it up to 10 years. And so I think she was taking umbrage to some degree that this was the first time she's seen some of this stuff. And she's seeing it from a planning and zoning perspective, is that that there's potential. We really never had recommended any zoning regulation changes in the draft. So, Kristen?
Yeah, well, I mean, this draft was out before the stewardship plan. The stewardship plan came out like to where somebody like Sue could see it just a couple days ago. So she hasn't seen any of the supplemental material yet in which some of this stuff is addressed.
I think it's covered in the action items, which are future stuff, but we don't have all the answers here. But
Yeah.
I thought we did address the fact that we would work with the zoning commission. I can't remember the action item, but certainly they're in section 7 to go do that.
Yeah.
So I think we just have to tell them that, that's all.
Okay, so I don't see us doing anything with this.
Right, we already edited some of the action items, Tom, to include
Yeah.
the zoning,
Yeah. and
flipped
we'll
it to
fix
put
that.
them first.
Yeah. Okay. So now we get down to page 4. We fixed page 41, page 46. The Conservation Commission expand the effect of sea level line reservoir assets. People know it's GU's current plans to mitigate sea level rise and what impact it might have on the town. Here's what's going on with this whole Haley Brook stuff. When I went back and looked at this, is that because there was a comment from the planning department also that went to the text team in regard to why are you using an old document that the water we reference and have pictures in there in regard to the watershed expansion that Groton Utilities is using, because that they've actually put out a plan that says this is where I want to be getting open space. And so I referenced that, and that document is from 2008. Sure, it's 12 years old. And what's happened there is that the area that document covers all the originally was just the towns of Montville, New London, Waterford, Groton, North and South, and North Stonington and North Stonington, and Preston, and also Norwich. And now it's expanded that to the whole eastern. It goes all the way up to the Massachusetts line now, with all the eastern Connecticut towns. And so with that, then and those plans have been updated every 5 years. And Groton Utilities is a small player right now, so there's no more. They haven't updated any kind of planning documents, so there's nothing there. And so I don't have any current information in regard to what Groton Utilities is doing relative to sea level rise and what's happening with their things. And I think I'm still using the stuff that Groton Utilities, because it's still posted on their website as their most active information. And so that's I'm hesitant to change any of that, is that's the best information that we have, and where Groton Utilities wants to expand, and it's in Groton. So, sure, this is all nice to know information, but I don't have any better information at this time, and haven't really pursued trying to drill down in more information, because this gets into, it's really more outside of our scope as a conservation commission, and into Groton Utilities operations and their sustainability of their watershed relative to infiltration. I don't really think it's ours to discuss. And I just trying to get agreement from everybody else that this is getting out of the scope for us.
Michelle, I agree.
It's a stretch.
Yeah.
What does Bruce have to say about the Haley Brook and the whole watershed on the northeastern part of town as a future water source? Well, I mean,
I don't really know what the future water. I'm not sure about that. That's really more Groton Utilities. I don't know what the next water source would be for the town.
Okay. So I'm just gonna, I think there's no answer for here. These are just comments to her for consideration rather than specific things here. And then as far as I would suggest the the conservation confer with the town staff regarding the status update his tree list. And we already have an internal action item with the tree warden. Remember we had him come to our meeting back a few months ago. And he was going to work with a summer intern, then COVID hit, and so nothing's really happened with this, but we already have an action item covering this item. And then the all thing is in this rogue mountain bikers thing. She really goes into a whole thing in here. Fragmentation of critical habitats. I don't know what to do. Again, this is another, what to take a look at.
That's out of scope.
Yeah. So again, this, if anything, is something in consideration and stewardship issues and how do you want to let mountain bikers on your property, but it's not part of our plan.
Right, it's under the stewardship model, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And then this whole thing is stewardship here, as far as what's the definition of stewardship. And so, I think this is all, again, this would be, and then the next one is again, another stewardship management plan, labor intensive and stuff. So I don't think we'll take any action in here. And then she picked up an Appendix F relative to the updating prioritization. So we've already talked about that.
We talked about that. Yeah.
So those are the only things that I've looked at as far as from a text committee. And so I'll stop sharing here.
Tom,
The two documents.
if you would take your list and just back up for a second, there was one reference that she said about when we earmarked certain properties for certain purposes. She gave another reference that we could look at someone else's maps for that.
Oh, this one here,
Yeah. I don't know anything about it.
I have already referenced the Yukon Eco Mappers. Is a reference already in our document that she didn't pick up. It's farther, it's back in section 4. And this, the advanced mapper here, Connecticut Credit has this. I have already referenced this farther on. It's not in figures 3-5. The stuff that she has here, the DEP database. I did make a note in there that it's not fully inclusive, okay, but neither is the critical habitat for the Yukon thing either. So and that's why I put these notes in here that says that that we are using the Yukon Eco to see additional habitats, and that and the Nature's Network takes into the Yukon. We use the in the text in page 55 and 56 takes a look at the Nature's Network, which is a subset, which is also has everything the Yukon Eco does have. So, and then we reference the Yukon Eco Mapper. What's happening here is you're getting multiple databases out there of critical habitat, whether you're going with the state of Connecticut, the Yukon, the Harvard, or the Nature Conservancy. So they've got these multiple databases, and I reference all of them between the two chapters. That help, Ray?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
This is Michelle. I have a question and comment. One, so obviously I missed the first part of the discussion, but I don't think it's critical for my question and comment. So I would like to make me and Tom a kind of subcommittee of the heads of the two subcommittees. And Tom, I need to work with you, and if I could get the marked up versions of those documents so I can see what you've already commented on about what the data people need to do. But I need to work with you to make sure that I have that list updated, and also the maps, and just for information. Right now, because the students are back and the COVID thing it's almost impossible for me to get on site to do the mapping. But I at one point had access to theoretically be able to go remotely to get into the GIS lab. I never followed through because I was able to go on site, so I need to do that so I can fix the map. But Tom, I think if you and I work together, we can make sure that those two things have all the details right and not try to cover the details in a meeting like this. And the data set, I mean, I need your input, but I can fix the stuff if I have a chance to talk to you.
And we agree with you. We had talked about this early on before you got here. The task was for me to send it to Brandon and he'd get it to you. But I will send it to you directly now that I've got you.
Yeah, I think if the two of us just work together directly, we can really get this nailed.
Okay. I gotta figure out my video here. I'm going offline here. My video's frozen here, so.
Yeah, we saw that you were
All right.
kind of like holding one.
It got frozen when I went to the screen share, so I will let me work on that.
Well, we can still hear you.
You have
so
your
that's okay.
audio anyway, so.
Yeah.
Still getting.
Yeah, so the big thing,
it
Tom,
is,
that
I'd
I
like
need
to,
from you is to send me the marked up copy so I can start fixing that list.
Yeah, and I have an action to do that.
Okay.
all right. So from a timeline point of view, we did get input in by the end of September. We've just reviewed, almost all of the comments. We got some work to do. My suggestion would be to get some, time estimate about when all the stuff we just went over could be updated. But I also think it would be worthwhile to make an offer to the planning and the zoning commission and the planning staff to make an offer to say, is if you're willing, we could, go over any questions you may have to explain it, but we do need to shut it down at some point. So first of all, I need the two pieces of that. Do you agree? I'll do the second one first. Do you agree we should extend an offer to those two organizations who spend a little time, if they want, to go over some of their comments? That's kind of a yay or nay.
Can't hurt.
Can't
Well,
hurt.
didn't they already do that with their, am I muted? Didn't they already do that
Well,
with
no,
their
no.
comments?
Well, we got the comments, but some of the comments, a lot of the comments we've taken care of. There are some things just to be able to explain because they kind of miss the point of what we're doing on some of the items, right? And just politically, as I thought it might be a good idea just to say we got your comments, we've made a lot of changes, get the changes to them ahead of time, and say we'll be happy to review, anything that at your request. I mean, we're saying this is our final version. I'm not saying we wait. I'm just saying make an offer to be able to explain what our position was if we didn't just make one of their recommendations and just made a change. So, but you're right. I didn't think it would hurt.
I think it's a good idea to
So-
get back to them, with some of their comments, and say, this is, we've received your comment, we've reviewed it, and this is what we came out with. I think that would be good.
Right. Other comments on that?
Yep, I agree.
1, 2, 3. Well, all right. That's a majority anyway. So, all right. So subsequent to getting a final draft, and Tom, are you keeping a change document?
Yes, I have a new document that's dated today that has all the text team comments, and then I will incorporate all the text comments from tonight's discussion. I will update that over the next 2 days here and have that available for distribution here probably by Thursday.
All right. So if you hold on to that, because it might be easier if we send them, hey, we've got a final document. Oh, by the way, here's the change control document so you can see the changes we made and they can compare it against their comments. I mean, that's a future. So from a schedule point of view, what do you guys think where we could get to a final draft? I guess, Tom, you're first.
Like I said, I'll have my cut on all these comments from today's meeting, probably by Thursday or definitely by Friday by the end of this week. I just don't know if we need to have a special meeting. You know, we could ask Bruce to send this comments out, and I can take any comments, you know, individually to develop this, and then work to have a final thing. Now, I'm going to be leaving the country on the 23rd is my last day locally here, and I'll be gone through the next meeting, and hopefully, and I don't know my attendance at the next meeting, whether it's going to be kind of like Michelle was here. I may or may not make it in at the very beginning because I'm changing hotels and stuff on that Monday. So I'll have to kind of wait and see and not promise availability, but I definitely could have a document ready and in the package which would have gone out. The text team would have reviewed it, and I'd be able to, if Bruce can send it out to everybody to provide individual comments back for my corrections and getting those all back by the 23rd. And that's pretty much my lockdown date. I'm going to try to have everything done by.
So this is Michelle. If I could have whatever you're doing by the end of the week, then I can spend the weekend trying to work through the pieces that are missing, that are my responsibility. And so if I could work on that next weekend, because I'm in quarantine anyway. So the following week, so a week from now, I'm not sure about the map. I'll try to do that, but I can certainly make sure that that our inventory is up to date, and based on the comments the ones that I saw. But I can make sure that it's consistent with what's in the document once Tom makes his updates.
All right, so as a game plan, the updates from Tom, I think we do this in 2 waves. Then the updates from Michelle with a target that says that our 11.2, I mean, we get that out there and do our own individual feedback, targeting 11.2 to have a vote that says this is our final version of it. Does that sound right to you guys?
Yes.
All right, and then subsequent to 11.2.
If the stars align.
Yeah.
Subsequent to that, remember 2020, we're running out of the year.
But I'm still going to be in Hawaii next month's meeting too.
Well, we could all come out and be with you.
Visit.
And then subsequent to 11.2, make an offer to the planning staff and the zoning staff that says, hey, we've finalized our document. We've taken all your stuff into account. We'd be happy to meet with you to explain what we did and any questions you may have, which would take place after November 2nd, right? Which may or may not happen even this year. I mean, so yes, Kristen.
Doesn't it make more sense to meet with them before you finish the document and rather than sort of like, here's what we did? If you truly want to give them input, meet with them first, and it is a little bit, we do want it done in 2020, but it's a slightly artificial construct. It's probably more important to make sure that it's right and good before we just say it's going to be finished.
Well, I think if you look at the comments as we went through it, all the factual ones, I think we've made changes on. The ones that are the most contentious, we're not going to change anyway. It's so I thought we made, I mean, Tom, you could weigh in on this. I thought we've made the vast majority of their comments we've kind of adopted.
I would say that's true for the planning department. We're basically buying. I would say 90% of everything that they made a recommendation on it, we're taking. It's a little different story with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I didn't go through all the other comments from from Mr. Pritchard and stuff. We didn't have time here tonight to go through all those, and I just don't know how you want to handle some of the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's almost I don't know if you want to have a joint meeting with them or
well, it's one commission, Tom.
Yeah.
So right now they're one commission. So you'd offer the one meeting or not. I think the ones in Pritchard's one, where, you know, take out this whole section. And my response is no, we're not going to take out that section.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So-
Maybe would it be better for you to meet with him private, you know, one-on-one or something, rather than tying our hands, you know, with meetings and additional draft runs and stuff. It might be, you know, as far as and I think you meeting also with the housing authority would be the other one, because we're
Yeah,
basically
I'll do that.
saying go to them
Yeah,
too.
that's fine. I could take care of the housing one. I think,
Michelle's got her hands up.
yes, Michelle.
So I was just kind of a compromise. I kind of agree with letting Tom do his thing, but then offering to meet with planning and zoning, just in case they say something that makes us want to tweak something. I mean, even though we already know the stuff that we're not going to incorporate, but at least giving the possibility of tweaking before we vote on the final, before we vote on the final, in case there's minor things we want to adjust.
So the suggestion is a pre-release of the changes we've made to zoning, the housing, and the planning, with an offer, if you guys authorize not a whole commission meeting, but, you know, myself and Bray, or myself and Tom, but I know you're out in Hawaii still, you know, to go forward and do that with, you know, whoever is available, rather than a full commission.
Right, make it an ambassador subcommittee.
Yeah, it's a good term.
Ambassador, I'll write that down. Subcommittee. Very, very pretentious. Thank you, Michelle. Oh, must be the Hawaiian flavor. Okay, must be. I think we've kind of did a lot of good stuff tonight. I know that we didn't get through the agenda, so I would kind of. Then I know we had the stewardship package there teed up, but I would suggest that we defer to our next meeting and focus on getting the final draft and the reviews out. And I'm going to asterisk that. Unless you guys want to continue, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Can I make a last minute question? And that is, with all the stuff that got sent to us in the packet today, and it arrives Friday afternoon, you know, a few days before the meeting, and we all have lives over the weekend, it's really tough to read all that material and have some timely thoughts, you know, ready for the next meeting. So if we could have it more of a week in advance rather than a couple of days in advance, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, Bruce and I have had that discussion of getting it out a little earlier. So I will work on that with Bruce for the next meeting, right, Bruce?
Yeah, and it's a two-way street. You guys need to get all your stuff in, and we need to get our packets out too. So if you can do it, I'll make it work too. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Well, this last time we had the problem of getting the comments in from the planning staff, et cetera, and to get it all PDF. So it was a little strange. I mean, we talked about getting it out earlier, like Tuesday or Wednesday, you know, not necessarily Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, I did try to get it out Thursday.
Yeah. So that we did address that, Bray. We didn't quite make it for this time around. So we'll work on it for the next meeting. Tom, you had your hand up?
Well, no, we kind of screwed ourselves by putting the deadline so late for the staff people, and we didn't really have a lot of time here, even early in the month here also. But the other thing you could do, like what I did, is I sent my wife to Boston and then had the whole weekend to myself to
All right, so you've all got that recommendation, is get rid of your significant other for the weekend.
Bray, can I ask about
the
can I ask about the emails? Is everyone getting the emails and the Zoom meeting information early enough? Is that working out? I tried to get it out earlier. I'm going
Yes.
to try to keep doing that. Is that all? Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Right,
And it
second.
seemed, it seemed that I also got I got the earlier one that you sent, and I also got one like today, which helped, so I didn't have to go scrolling through like a week's worth of emails to try and find that other one. So that was, the reminder was very good.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll try to send it out. I'll try to send out the initial one a week before and then a reminder the day of.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Okay.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, if there's no discussion, and then we will adjourn the meeting without objection. Bruce, I would like to have you forward our thanks for the detailed input from the planning department. So that's yours. So we'll do that on, and we'll get the message out to the other folks as well. So thank you and Deb for the efforts. I don't know who else worked on it, but we appreciate it. All right, with that, we've got a game plan between now and November 2nd, the day before Election Day. Make sure you guys go out and vote on that next day, if you haven't already. No, I guess we haven't gotten any of the ballots, so you can't even vote remotely yet.
My ballot
Anywho.
arrived today.
Oh, it
They're
did. I
coming.
did. Oh, I'll go look. I didn't get mine. That I don't know. I have to go look. All right, very good. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Appreciate
Tom,
it.
I'll touch base
On the
after I
home
read your
stretch.
stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye,
Aloha.
everybody.
Yeah.
Aloha. Enjoy
Aloha.
Hawaii.
Thanks.
Aloha.